What if every challenge America faces today is just a repeat of the past? A relentless cycle where each generation is forced to learn the same lessons over and over. Are we stuck, destined to make the same mistakes? In his groundbreaking work, The Fourth Turning, historian Neil Howe suggests that America and much of the world operates within a cycle of generational changes, repeating a pattern every 80 to 100 years. Each of these cycles, or turnings, brings unique challenges, from periods of unity and prosperity to times of upheaval and crisis. It's an idea that feels almost mythic. A tale of 4 distinct seasons within each human lifetime. But what if it's true? And what if we're currently living in the final season, a fourth turning? A time marked by conflict and transformation. Today, America's experiencing a resurgence of struggles that feel all too familiar. Political polarization, economic disparity, and an uncertain future. It's easy to think of these as new issues, but according to the fourth turning theory, these are symptoms of a much deeper, recurring cycle. Let's break down the essence of the fourth turning. This theory, introduced by historians Neil Howe and William Strauss, proposes that every 80 to 100 years, society moves through a cycle of 4 stages, or turnings. Each stage has its own distinct traits, challenges, and impacts on society. These 4 turnings repeat across generations, meaning that while the people and the context change, the underlying struggles remain eerily similar. The first stage, known as the high, follows a period of crisis and marks a time of unity and rebuilding. Think of America after World War II. The country was united, economically strong, and optimistic. Then there's the awakening, a period where the younger generation begins to question established norms and seek deeper meaning. The 1960s counterculture movement, with its calls for civil rights and change, is a perfect example of this phase. After the awakening comes the unraveling. A time of fragmented values, weakened institutions, and rising tensions. Many historians argue that America entered its latest unraveling in the 1980s, characterized by increased political polarization, economic shifts, and societal divisions. And that brings us to today, the fourth turning or crisis, a period where society faces a severe, defining challenge. In the past, crises have been marked by wars, revolutions, or great economic upheavals. Each crisis tests the limits of society, forcing it to either collapse or transform. If history is any indication, the fourth turning is an inevitable time of reckoning. A season where old systems are broken down and the groundwork for a new era is laid. But why does this happen? Why does society seem destined to repeat the same patterns? Throughout history, each fourth turning has brought America to a critical juncture. A moment where the nation is forced to confront its deepest issues. And each time, the choices made in these moments have shaped the country's path for decades to come. The fourth turning theory suggests that every period of crisis is both a test and an opportunity, a time when America must face the unresolved issues that previous generations left behind. By looking back, we can see the patterns and lessons that history has offered us. During the Great Depression, America's economy was shattered, with unemployment reaching historic levels and poverty widespread. It was a crisis that tested the limits of the country's resilience. But from this hardship emerged transformative policies under Franklin D. Roosevelt's leadership, introduced labor rights, social security, and public work programs. This era also laid the groundwork for America's eventual role as a global superpower after World War II, solidifying the idea that crisis breeds transformation. Another intense fourth turning was the Civil War, a time when America was divided to its core. Issues like slavery and states' rights created such deep divisions that they couldn't be resolved without a drastic confrontation. The Civil War fundamentally reshaped the nation's identity, forcing it to reckon with its values and laying the groundwork for future civil rights movements. This crisis showed that while turnings are times of great risk, they also provide an opportunity for a new birth of freedom and values. The very birth of America was itself a fourth turning. Colonists, frustrated with oppressive rule and lack of representation, pushed for independence, sparking the Revolutionary War. From this chaos, America emerged as a nation built on democratic ideals, a foundation that continues to guide it. Each of these fourth turnings reshaped America. There were moments when society's very foundations were called into question, and people had to confront difficult truths. Each time, the crisis wasn't just a challenge. It was a chance for reinvention. If history repeats itself, then America is once again in a fourth turning. But what does that mean for us today? In the framework of the fourth turning, our present era is a time of crisis. A moment that forces society to confront unresolved issues from previous generations. We're seeing signs everywhere: economic inequality, political polarization, and a deepening sense of division. These are familiar tensions, but with a modern twist. We're in a time where people feel disconnected from each other and from the very institutions meant to support them. Let's take a moment to consider what this means. A fourth turning doesn't just hint at crisis, it predicts a total transformation. The outcomes, however, are not guaranteed. In previous fourth turnings, America faced major challenges but emerged with a renewed vision. Will this cycle end the same way, or are we heading towards something different? Economic inequality is perhaps the most visible and pressing issue of our time. While the stock market has surged, wealth has become increasingly concentrated, and many people feel left behind. This isn't just about the working class. People across the board are feeling squeezed, from rising housing costs to higher education debt. This frustration, as we've seen in previous turnings, often catalyzes significant change. Political division has reached new extremes, with Americans often viewing each other not as fellow citizens, but as opponents. The erosion of trust in institutions, from government to media, reflects a society that's struggling to find common ground. Historically, such polarization has been a hallmark of fourth turnings, pushing society to either rebuild its institutions or see them collapse. Technology, especially social media, has accelerated these divides and intensified the echo chambers we live in. In past turnings, communication barriers slowed down the pace of change. Today, however, we're flooded with information and misinformation, making it harder to find clarity amidst the noise. The signs of a fourth turning are all around us, and they're growing more apparent with each passing year. If history is any guide, America is headed toward a crossroads where hard decisions must be made. Will we emerge transformed, or will we be overwhelmed by the challenges we face? If history has taught us anything, it's that America doesn't change easily. Each time we face a crisis, the nation is forced to confront hard truths, to reckon with lessons that often come at a high cost. But will we learn this time? Throughout each fourth turning, America has been tested by crises that reveal the nation's deepest flaws and divisions. Yet these moments also present opportunities, chances to rebuild, redefine, and renew. The question is whether America is willing to confront these lessons, or if it will once again take the hard way toward transformation. History has shown that in times of crisis, societies rely on visionary leadership to guide them through uncertainty. In the Great Depression, Roosevelt's New Deal didn't just address immediate economic needs. It redefined the role of government in American life and brought people together under a shared purpose. But for unity to happen, there must be a willingness to bridge divides. The current political climate suggests this might be one of our greatest challenges yet. In previous fourth turnings, economic hardship and inequality forced America to make difficult choices. Policies were implemented to protect workers, regulate monopolies, and ensure a fairer distribution of wealth. Today, we're again faced with vast disparities, with the wealthiest Americans seeing gains while the rest of the population struggles. If America is to avoid the social fracturing that economic injustice brings, we'll need to take a hard look at the policies that maintain this divide. Each turning tends to repeat certain mistakes. During the Great Depression, America learned about the dangers of unchecked capitalism. And after the Civil War, the country learned the cost of leaving critical issues unresolved. But these lessons tend to fade over time as newer generations forget the reasons behind the protections and policies put in place by their predecessors. This time, the stakes feel even higher. Our interconnected world means that the consequences of inaction or missteps could be felt more broadly and lastingly. The stakes of this fourth turning are high. If America fails to heed these lessons, the price could be even greater than before. But with awareness and intentional change, there's hope for transformation. As Howe and Strauss suggest, a fourth turning can lead to rebirth. But only if society is willing to make hard choices and learn from its past. So here we are, facing another fourth turning. A time of uncertainty, conflict, and transformation. The question isn't whether we'll face challenges. History has made that clear. The real question is whether we'll learn from the past or be doomed to repeat it. Throughout American history, each crisis has forced the nation to look inward, to confront uncomfortable truths and make difficult decisions. Some of those lessons have stuck, shaping the laws, policies, and values we hold today. Others have faded with time, leaving us vulnerable to repeating old mistakes. The stakes feel higher now, perhaps because we're more aware of our interconnected world and the speed at which consequences ripple through society. As we move forward, each of us plays a role in shaping what comes next. Will we choose to learn from history, or will we allow the cycle to continue, forcing the next generation to learn the hard way? The path isn't set. The choices we make now will determine whether America rises from this turning renewed or weakened. This is the moment when America must decide, because as history has shown, change is coming. The only question left is how we'll meet it.